Welcome again to a special edition of Voice of Reason here on the Comcast Network, and we're very excited today to have another congressional race in the spotlight. It's the 13th Congressional District covering Montgomery County and a portion of Northeast Philadelphia. And with us today are the two combatants in this race. Incumbent Congresswoman Allyson Schwartz has been in Congress since January 2005, was in the state Senate starting back in 1991, and is now a Democratic member of the United States House of Representatives. She's married with two children, one who just got married. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And she's seeking her third term in office, right?
It'll be the
fourth term in office as the congressperson from Montgomery County in Northeast Philadelphia. Challenging her is Dee Adcock. Dee is one of the most successful businessmen in the pool supply industry in the United States, taken a family firm and grown it in the last 35 years. Major executive in his field, graduate of Juniata College in Huntington, Pennsylvania, and he represents the Republican ticket. We'll start first with the incumbent. Number one issue in this campaign.
Oh, it's the economy and jobs. There's so many people who are deeply worried, as completely understandable, is how we are going to grow our way forward and creating new jobs, making sure that we put all those Americans back to work. And it's not us, it's the private sector that does. So what the role of government is in that. But I think what's on people's minds is how do we actually move forward? They'd like us to move forward together and not be so divisive. That's obviously a challenge.
Well, just quickly before we get to Dee on this issue, you know, the big argument now between Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, moderates, even in the middle of it, is whether we spent too much on the stimulus and the health care initiative, and whether that's put us into a big deficit hole.
Well, first of all, I think that it is a fact that the last 2 years that we inherited a terrible recession, much worse than in fact was even anticipated. It's deep, it's broad, it's a serious unemployment, and it's taken us a long time to grow out of it. We were losing 700,000 jobs a month a year and a half ago, and now we are gaining smaller amounts than we'd like. We'd like to see it move faster, but this is a very deep and very broad recession. It's going to take a while for us to move out of it. Taking the action that we did, it was tough. You know, taking the action we did, I think almost every economist feels that if we had not done that, we would have seen far worse as far as job loss and a deeper, deeper depression. Many of us have family members who talked to us about what it was like to live through the Depression, did not want to see that happen again. So we're seeing a rebound, not as fast as we would like, but we certainly are seeing that rebound. And the real question is, can we go back to the policies that led us to this disaster in the first place? And my answer would be we can't. We have to keep moving ahead, tackle the challenges that we have in this country, make sure that we have Americans prepared for the work that we have, grow small businesses in the private sector, and make sure that our tax policies actually don't favor sending jobs overseas, that in fact favor manufacturing here at home, new innovative jobs here at home, the kind of jobs that here in southeastern Pennsylvania people are going to see for themselves and their children. How
do you see the economic future, and what would you do if you were elected to Congress, Dee Adcock?
Well, as a businessman and my background in economics, I have actually employed people and paid for health care. I know what it takes as a businessman. They compare risk and reward, and right now so much risk is out there as being provided by the government. It's instead of the government working with business people and working with consumers. They're adding so much risk that consumers are withdrawing. They're not wanting to buy anything or pay anything, and business people are not wanting to expand because they're afraid. They're afraid of what's coming down the road and what's coming in the new health care bill. All the uncertainty there is causing us not to have a good rebound and recovery.
If you served the 13th district in Congress, what would you propose? A reduction in the deficit? Because that always definitely causes pain somewhere.
Right now, we had the stimulus bill. The president was talking about shovel-ready jobs. Well, just this week he's come out and said those jobs never really existed. And certainly doing infrastructure is a good thing. But of that stimulus bill, of that $800 billion, about $40 billion of it went to actual real infrastructure improvements.
How do you feel about that, or how would you react to his critique of the administration?
Well, we took action that we thought we needed to, and again, we actually worked really hard for many, many months over what would actually work, how would we could stabilize the economy. I mean, the fact is that we actually, most of the dollars in the stimulus program was actually tax cuts for most Americans. I mean, 90%, 95% of Americans received a tax cut. It's kind of hidden in their paychecks. That's kind of, maybe we should have been flashier about it, but we wanted more money in people's pockets.
Well, let me ask you this,
we
so
did do that.
we can move the debate on about money, and then I'll get to D. Most of the Democrats want to get rid of the, they want to keep the tax cuts for the middle class, the so-called Bush cuts. You and most, I believe that you and most of the Democrats want to eliminate those tax cuts for the upper, what, 1 or 2%
of Americans. But let's be clear about this, is that other than the stimulus, we have made a commitment in Congress, and I'm one of them who feels strongly about this, is that of course we have to get the national debt under control. We have to move towards a balanced budget. We have to pay for what we spend. If we don't act responsibly, then we're not doing the right thing for Americans and for the country. But we also have to get taxes right. We've cut taxes for the middle class. We'll continue to keep cutting taxes for the middle class. I'm proud to do that. In this area, we might have a conversation about whether we should not only extend tax cuts for the first $250,000 of income, but extend it a little bit higher. Many folks would like to see it a little bit higher. I wouldn't mind seeing that myself.
You wouldn't mind seeing that.
But really, the Bush tax cuts that cost $1 trillion that was not paid for, added to the national debt, really was for millionaires and multimillionaires. They've got to pay their share. Okay,
now I'd like to know how you feel about that, about the tax cuts expiring or being cut for the upper middle class, because there is an interesting theory, even some Democrats or blue dog Democrats would say, that there's an interesting theory that wealthy upper end of the United States actually stimulates the economy. Do you feel that way?
Well, certainly the upper end can stimulate the economy. More importantly, small businessmen like myself. 48% of small business people who are employing people, and where the job growth is going to come from, are going to have tax increases if this doesn't go through. And that's going to cost jobs.
So you would be in favor of keeping the tax cuts for...
A while ago, yes. Simply because while we're not theoretically officially in a recession, obviously we're not in a very strong recovery. And in a recession, you don't raise taxes. And what business people really need is certainty. We need to know what we're paying in taxes, whatever it is. And so far, the Congress voted to adjourn. They voted to shirk their responsibilities, to leave Washington a week early, instead of letting us know, you and me, the consumer, the business person, what their taxes are going to be in the future. So that just adds to the uncertainty that comes from the healthcare bill, the stimulus bill, but now we don't even know what we're going to pay in taxes. So how do we plan?
The truth is, Republicans want to adjourn early too, because no one wanted to take a position in the close races.
Well, that's the problem with politics. I'm not a politician, I'm a business person, and we need business people in Washington to make things work, not career politicians and more lawyers.
It's a good, interesting point about lame duck sessions of Congress. The lame duck session will get underway after the election. Do you think a lame duck session should really vote on big issues?
Well, I don't think we're going to do something that is dramatically, unclear about how we're going to move ahead. The fact is, look, we need to work in a bipartisan way. We can't do it without a few Republicans in the Senate agreeing with us. We always look to find that common ground. But do I think that we should just not take responsibility in November and December to vote on some of the tax policy? Because in fact, it is important for us to deal with some of the Bush tax cuts. We want to make sure that we extend them for the middle class. I mean, is it the suggestion, and actually many Republicans have said, we don't want you to come back in lame duck. So which means that we have all those tax cuts for the middle class, and they want to be sure for wealthy people actually expire. We don't want to see that happen.
Unless my memory serves me wrong, wasn't it a lame duck session of the House that impeached President Clinton?
I'll let you do the history on that.
You weren't there then.
I was not there then. Okay. I wasn't a part of that. But look, let me also say that what my opponent just said, what Dee just said about small business is actually not the facts. There are about 35 million small businesses important to our economy. We want to see them grow. We've done tax breaks for those small businesses. But in fact, when he says that they're going to see a tax increase if we actually have the millionaires pay a little bit more is actually untrue. It's about 750,000 small businesses might see a small tax increase. That is not 50% in anyone's book.
Okay, I have a question for you that I think is an interesting question about the health care bill, and I'd like to get your response and the Congresswoman's response. Neighborhood pharmacies,
Yes.
Whether they're independents or CVS's or Rite Aids or whatever, Walgreens, are all starting to hurt very badly because, not because of the health care bill, but because the insurance companies are now requiring people to get their pills on continuing problem medications by mail order. So what you're seeing is the possibility of the end of the neighborhood pharmacy, where people can't go and talk to their pharmacist. And this is really hurting a lot of pharmacies in Pennsylvania and in other places of the country. What can you do as a congressperson to stop that?
Well, this healthcare bill is going to turn the whole healthcare industry on its head.
What don't you like about it?
There's a lot of things I don't like about it. One thing is just the way it was passed, in a totally partisan fashion, over the course of a weekend. I mean, they had no trouble staying in Congress for the weekend to get this 2,400-page bill passed. It complicates our life. It provides government control over our health care. It adds 137 new agencies. It takes $528 billion away from Medicare. That's going to increase the value of Medicare. It takes $138 billion out of Medicaid Advantage.
Would you vote to repeal it if you were in Congress?
I would vote to defund it, and I think it is so big, so complex, and all the agencies that are going to be involved, yes, I would vote to repeal it.
Okay, so let's go back to this pharmacy business, okay? This is not a law, all right, but insurance companies pressed and organizations, whether they be a company or a union or whatever, are saying to the people, you've got to, if you have a continuing problem, you have to go to mail order. So what does that do to the neighborhood pharmacy, which was the bastion of American life? I mean, it's not you're not the one passing the bill, I'm not saying that, but it is an interesting little dilemma going on.
Well, I think just looking a little more broadly, and actually when I was in the state Senate, we had this issue about, you know, I didn't think we should mandate mail order, but
right.
Some people find it very convenient. I think the point is for us to continue to encourage the healthcare system, including pharmacists, who are an important part of the healthcare system. They give great advice. It's important for them. There is much that they can do to make sure that they're there for the people who come in and talk to them. You know, one of the bills that, one of the actions that I worked on, and it got done well before healthcare reform actually, was to encourage doctors to use something called electronic prescribing, so that instead of handwriting a prescription, they would send it electronically to the pharmacist. What's great about that is there are about 1.5 million prescription drug errors in this country. People die, thousands of people die every year, and most of that's handwriting errors. So just by the stroke of the, you know, that decision, I was going to say stroke of a pen, but in this case it's a computer, we can actually make sure that doctors and nurses are working with pharmacists, that they're getting the prescriptions right, that people know what they're using. But let me just say on this is that on the health care bill itself, Dee did come with the Tea Party activists on that Saturday when we stayed through the weekend in Washington to ask me and ask us not to vote on this bill. He clearly stands for repealing the bill.
He just said he would.
And he did. So yeah, so he's really clear about that. But understand what that means. What that means is the consumer protections, the patient's Bill of Rights that's now in effect, that says to the insurance industry, you can no longer discriminate based on pre-existing conditions for our children. There can be no lifetime limits, annual limits. He's going to take away all those protections, and he wants individuals to negotiate themselves with an insurance company.
How do you feel about that?
Not easy to do.
We're going to take